continuing with the perspective on polarity. So we found that we are actually existing as polarity within ourselves. The polarity of good and evil. Both good and evil exist within ourselves. As for example, happy and sad, as a very simple example. And that we're actually attempting or trying to fight with ourselves. We're actually attempting and trying to resist ourselves by existing as happiness and as sadness, and only wanting to exist as happiness and wanting to kind of shove away and shun away the sadness. We're creating that imbalance, that resistance within ourselves, and therefore we're actually constantly rebalancing and playing tennis ball with ourselves, as happiness or as sadness, as good and as evil. So we found that this whole polarity design of good and evil exists as ourselves, as self. I exist as both good and evil. It is here as me. I cannot deny it. That's why it's manifested within this world, in this reality. That's why good and evil exists. Because I'm existing as it, and I'm actually living it. Whether I'm attempting or trying to be good, or only remain good, I am in that also creating the evil, because of the very act of me wanting to resist it. Me wanting to deny its existence. Me wanting to literally make its existence non-existent. Because what I'm in that doing, I'm actually giving evil the power to exist, because evil cannot exist without good, and good cannot exist without evil, because they're in direct relationship with each other. It's a whole integral design. It's one within its manifestation, good and evil. So once we realize that, and what the fear of wanting to lose our definition of being good indicated is that we were actually defining ourselves according to good and judging evil. And within that definition and judgment, creating fear. In essence, existing in fear of ourselves. Existing in fear of ourselves as good and evil. And that we have constantly attempted or tried to exist as a definition. And we realize, but we are not a definition. And then comes the question, but who are we? So, we went to quite an extreme. We said, fine. Because I fear losing a definition, that definition of good and all that it entails, it is actually showing me that I've separated myself from good, and within me fearing evil, resisting evil, denying evil, it shows me that I've separated myself from all that is evil. Because how can you fear losing yourself? It's impossible. I'm here, so what is that fear? And then we realize, but this whole polarity design of good and evil is just a design. It is a design manifestation from which I've separated myself from. It is actually me. For example, how have we created ourselves as this polarity of good and evil? This is what we found. The evil represents all that we have separated ourselves from. Parts that exist in self, that is actually of self, but that we refuse to see, that we refuse to recognize. Because we fear that part of ourselves. We fear that parts of what we define as evil that actually exist in us, as us, that we actually experience and see exist in us within our very thoughts. And within fearing that part of us, we created an opposite polarity, good, wanting to hide the real truth of ourselves, that is actually evil. This is but one perspective of what we found with regards to the polarity of good and evil. That we've feared parts of ourselves to such an extent that we deemed it as evil, creating a polarity evil of ourselves, And upon that polarity, that point of separation, we created a projection, an opposite projection of evil as parts of ourselves that we have feared, and that opposite projection we designed as good. And now we're existing here, while there, in this polarity conflict of good and evil. Once we realized this, we did the following. So we started at all that we defined as being good. And what we did is we stopped all self-definition of what the point of good entails, what the polarity point of good entails. Meaning simply not accepting or allowing ourselves to define ourselves as being good. And then we took the opposite polarity of evil, and we stopped all self-definition, all experiences, all fears, all judgments of evil. Meaning we literally deconstructed the entire polarity design of good and evil that existed within ourselves. In other words, we stopped ourselves from existing as the definition of good. We stopped ourselves from existing as the fear of evil, and all fears, judgments, resistances, denials, suppressions of evil in its entirety. And within that process, we reached the point of equilibrium, meaning not existing as good or as evil, simply here as self, in self-honesty. And to have been able to do that process of stopping self from existing as the polarity as good and as evil was done within the principle of self-honesty, meaning not having any perception towards the design of good and the design of evil, meaning having no knowledge and information, ideas of good and evil. We simply looked at what we had defined good to be, we simply looked at what we have defined evil to be, and applied self-forgiveness for that very definitions. Because what we've done is we've defined good and we've defined evil, and within that definition we've lived the polarity design of good and evil. And within that living we've created a desire of wanting to be good and a fear of wanting to be evil. Which is polarity in itself, existing in desire and fear. So we reach the point of equilibrium in living self-honesty here in breath, not as a definition or a fear or a judgment or a desire of good and evil. Good and evil was a complete, total polarity manifested design. It wasn't real at all. So I suggest to consider not being defined according to good or evil, not existing as either one, or in the definition of either one. Because if you exist in evil, you're perpetuating good, and if you're existing in good, you're perpetuating evil. They're in direct relationship with each other. Stop existing as both. Simply live self-honesty here, and then I'm here. I live me. I don't exist in a constant battle of wanting to balance myself within the polarity design of good and evil. Right. Thank you very much.